gulf between us is a reflection of the disparity between the world as it was and what it has become. Still fighting the good fight. Very well. Let us proceed to your final judgment. The victor shall write the tale, and the vanquished become its villain. But come, let us cast aside titles and pretense, and reveal our true faces to one another. I am Hades, he who shall awaken our brethren from their dark slumber.
Congratulations, DE. You've done it. You found a way to bring me back to Warframe literally days before a major patch in Final Fantasy XIV. At the time when I wrote this, it's now a week after the patch. It took me some time. It took me some time to work out Uriel, whatever. I was already intrigued when I heard that we were going to be adding Grand Pings and hot French nuns, but this? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Kurojaku, and I've been playing Final Fantasy for the better part of the last year, only to see my favorite character's voice actor be added to Warframe. And before I get into how much I adore Uriel so far, I'm calling you out, Miss Rebecca. I've seen the Emmett Selk cosplay. I see precisely what you've done here, getting the ancient morally gray character to play the ancient morally gray character, who's one of the last few remaining who remember the old ways, the one seen as a villain but with mysterious, possibly good intentions. I mean, come on, does the concept of delving into his nightmarish memories to face a devil waiting at the bottom of that burning hellscape sound in any way familiar? Rebecca, you gorgeous, brilliant human being, you. Well played indeed. Now that I'm firmly hooked back into Warframe, once again, anyone who's played this game knows, you never truly leave. You just take an extended break. Let's get into just how insanely fun this new frame really is. To be clear, this isn't really a guide on how to play Uriel type situation. I really just wanted to rant about this guy and show off some ideas I'm messing about with. Oh, and show off the Hades-themed fashion frame. If I'm being honest, that's the entire reason this video even exists, but, you know, glam. Let's start with how he works before I get too rambly, that way you know what I'm actually on about. His passive is basically 3 passives in one, giving him 3 little demon buddies who float around doing various things. While technically the demons are tied to his 1, 2, and 3 ability, they aren't really tied to them. All that means is when you hit the level to unlock said ability, the demon will be active. So it's completely safe to helmet off any ability and keep all 3 demon friends. However, it does disable the scaling of the demon. So if a demon's effect tends to be buffed by range or power strength and you were to helmet off that demon's reflected ability, you would not be able to scale the strength or the range to the demon any longer. Just keep that in mind. The first of our lads will chain enemies together. Any damage one of them takes, all other chained enemies will also take. I am an absolute sucker for precision weapons in this game, and this synergizes perfectly, giving those single target weapons a bit of an AoE punch without being too reliant on gas or blast procs like I usually have to do. The second demon, who I've lovingly dubbed the Clinger, pounces on one nearby enemy and holds them in place while distracting them from doing any attacks. Should you kill this face-hugged victim, they will explode into a delicious piñata of orbs and leave behind a small AoE of damage. Or not so small if you max out your power range. Uriel's sustain is kinda silly with how many orbs you get. You may as well have Protea's dispensary for free on a passive at all times, with no energy cost to wind it up. Our final little buddy doesn't really harm enemies in any way, but instead looks for nearby corpses and turns them into these runic sigil-looking things. Picking up a rune gives you increased fire rate and heat damage on your weapons, because, of course, having chain damage, a dispensary, and a weapon buff all in one frame is not too much to ask for at all. Oh wait, we're still just on the passive? This is just the okay, on to the abilities. Uriel's one, well, it's honestly more of a passive ironically, but casting it gives you a pretty long-lasting buff that does fire status to anyone nearby. This, and many of his abilities, work very well with Archon Vitality. More on that later. And the nice part about heat status is not only does it reduce armor, but it also makes most enemies flinch and squirm about for some light crowd control. On top of all that, it lets you fly through the air as a demonic fireball with no drawback or even energy drain for flying around. Just complete freeform flight with the only limit being you have to keep moving forward. The speed of flight does scale with parkour velocity and roll speed, as it is technically a dodge roll that never ends. However, sprint speed will not buff this effect. Stuff like Firewalker is excellent for this, but also keep in mind the additional heat procs for bullet jumping will not apply, because again, this is not technically a bullet jump, it is technically a dodge roll. I do kind of wish DE would change that and make its fireball count as a bullet jump and a roll both. That way mods such as this, or the Toxin one, or the Cold Proc one, would actually function alongside it. Bonus points if you could also somehow make it so the Toxin bullet jump mod turns you into a speeding glass cloud of doom, but that's probably asking for way too much. He's fine as is. Uriel's 2, which is also his helmet ability, looks kind of boring at first glance, and honestly, I kind of wanted to just helmet it off, but I was very wrong. It's just a simple heal, and not much to it. However, it is actually kind of absurd. In effect, it's basically a shield gate that scales with power strength and your maximum health. It cleanses all status effects that you may have, and also gives you invincibility frames when you start the cast, making it the perfect oh shit button. Now, I have tried using this as my helmet slot, like I mentioned before, for the Jade Eyes, of which I'm mildly obsessed with, but I did run into a slight issue with that. I'm not entirely sure if it is a bug or not, but your demons don't seem to respawn if they die, and this skill is the only way to heal or revive them. If it's bugged and gets patched, then you can ignore this bit, but just keep in mind that if that is intended, helmeting off your 2 may not be a great idea. The reason I bring up dead minions being an issue has to do with Uriel's 3rd ability, which doesn't seem to cast unless you actually have demons alive to cast with, because this ability sends out your demons as 3 ghost bombs that detonate on a target in a decent-sized AoE and inflict a damage vuln on them. Wait just a goddamn second. Damage vulnerability. A vuln stack, if you will. Surely this is intentional. Surely I'm not reading too deep into this at all, but goddammit, is it fitting. To clarify for all the Warframe people who've never played Final Fantasy XIV before, getting hit by a boss mechanic usually gives you a vulnerability stack so that you don't immediately die, but instead die on the next failed mechanic or two, as sort of like a soft punishment system. And Hades, who is also voice acted by the same person who voice acts Roth and Uriel, happens to be one of those bosses. Anyways, what was I talking about again? Alright, the ghost bombs. Both the range the ghosts travel as well as the explosions scale with range, so I do highly recommend it. And of course, the more strength you have, the stronger the vuln and the damage of the skill itself. And last, but certainly not least by any means, Brimstone. Uriel's 4th ability is special. You cannot freely cast it, but instead charge up a gauge by interacting with your demon's various effects, or by casting your 3 at your enemies. Once filled, you can unleash a pretty massive AoE around you, smothering everything in its path with rapid-fire heat procs. With each hit, an enemy takes from the skill, doing even more than the last. I've messed with this as up to high as level 200 plus Steel Path enemies, and even they seem to just melt into a fiery puddle within mere moments of being in Hades, I mean Uriel's domain. Oh, and to make things even better, yes, this does not care for line of sight in the slightest, and will gladly paint nearby rooms and hallways in a burning hellscape. Basically, when in doubt, press 4 and everything in your local area code will cease to exist. Now, allow me to let you in on some builds and ideas I've been cooking up for Uriel. First things first, I mentioned before, helmet. I don't think I really want to helmet anything. If anything, I would probably helmet off the 1, but it's too much fun flying around as a fireball to do that, so I just leave his kit alone. It's because the 2 is extremely strong and kind of became the focal point of my build. Let's talk about the 4 first. Since the 4 is limited in how many times I can cast it, my intention was to make it as potent as possible when I do get to cast it. What this means is as much range as I can possibly get, as much duration as I can possibly get, and a good bit of power strength to make sure it still does really good damage. However, you don't need to juice up the power strength too high. He already kinda just kills shit already. So, First thing we do, we add Archon Vitality. It's going to double the heat procs, including the heat procs of the 4, which is absurd because that's where all the damage of the 4 comes from. So you basically just do a double damage buff to your 4 by putting this mod on. There is more to this mod in a minute, but we'll come back to that when I talk about his 2. Then, Overextended, Blind Rage to cover up for Overextended, that way we still have power strength and we're not in the gutter. We don't really care about the efficiency, we will have plenty of energy sustained with the plethora of orbs, and more power strength means more orbs, and more orbs means more energy, so really Blind Rage is a net positive. Prime Continuity to bump up that duration. Stretch and Augur Reach to bump up that range even more, along with Overextended. Augur Reach will come into play later as well. And then, to round things out, we add in Flow, that way, Prime Flow, that way I actually have enough energy capacity to cast more than one thing at a time. No Equilibrium on this build. The Equilibrium I reserved for an Archon Shard, and that seems to work plenty with the amount of orbs I have. And I needed room for Vigor. And why did I need room for Vigor? What's the point of Vigor and what am I doing? Allow me to explain. So, a while back we had this thing called Shield Gating. And Shield Gating, basically when your shields break, you become invincible. We used to have to do this in a way where you would get the smallest shield possible so that you could shield gate and then get your full shield back by casting an ability. DE then nerfed that and changed it so that now the duration of your invincibility scales with how high of a shield you have, with the cap being somewhere in the 1200 range. I think 1215 if I'm correct. I believe it is 1215. My goal here, because the second skill will heal you, and then anything that doesn't go into your health is going to go into your shields. Theoretically, we could make our skill 2 an on-demand shield gate refresh. We break a maxed out shield gate, we live for 2.5 seconds, we're immortal. Then we pop R2, get our full shield back, we're immortal when we pop R2 for about 1.5 seconds, maybe 2 seconds. And then if the shield breaks again, you're immortal again. It's the perfect loop, and we cleanse all our debuffs in the process of doing that. So to set this up, and because I'm already playing a health tank, and the skill scales off health, and I need Archon Vitality for the damage anyways, let's get as much health as possible. We get a plethora of health orbs. There is a little arcane, called Arcane Grace. You get increased max HP for every health orb you pick up. If our rooms are filled with health orbs all across the floor, we can stack this up perfectly. No problem. Very, very few frames can actually leverage Arcane Grace because you both need to be a frame that can make use of a high HP pool and also have access to a lot of health orbs on demand. And I could be mistaking things. I don't know every frame like the back of my hand. But Uriel is definitely one of those rare cases where you both have a reason to have high health and a lot of health orbs to work with. It was a match made in heaven. Then we take another arcane that was added with Warframe 99, which gives us increased power strength for every 250 health. The magic number to hit to max out this arcane is 3000 HP. That will give you 74 power strength, which makes up for the fact that we don't run as many power strength mods. And it effectively means Archon Vitality is a power strength mod, and Vigor is a power strength mod. Beautiful! With a normal Vigor mod, you will not actually hit the number you need. Arcane Grace gives 1200 HP at full stacks with a maxed out arcane. This build currently will top out in the 2800 range. My Vitality mod is rank 9, not rank 10, because I didn't have it leveled and I ran out of endo, because who the fuck uses Archon Vitality? Not me, until today. So I had to level it, and now I need to go get more endo to finish that. But anyways, what's important is, even if that was maxed out, with a normal Vigor, we cap out in the 2800 range. So not enough to get the full power strength. However, if you have a primed Vigor mod, which someday I will, and you have Archon Vitality with his base HP, and maxed out Arcane Grace, you will reach 3030 health, which is a perfect amount to fully cap out your 74 power strength, making this health arcane the best power strength arcane in the game. And it doesn't even take that long to stack up, like Molt Augmented, because you just feast on health orbs like crazy. You don't even have to do an endurance mission. I maxed out this entire augment, or arcane, sorry, I keep calling it an augment. I maxed out this entire arcane in the span of like a couple minutes every mission, just with the amount of health orbs we have running around. It's glorious. So to recap, we have insane range, we have really nice duration, we have enough power strength to get the job done, and we can still reach like 200% power strength with the maxed out arcane, right? Once we get our health stacks up. We have a massive HP pool, and we have a maxed out shield gate to leverage on top of that. So the shield gate can be my primary defensive, the HP pool can be my fallback in case things get dire, instead of running around with a shield gate and having 12 HP and exploding the moment you mess up the shield gate system. Everything works together. I love this build. Couple of things to note. Aura mods, not really. I haven't really decided on an aura I care for. The sprint speed one obviously doesn't help you. I'm not aware of a parkour velocity mod. Energy siphon isn't really needed. Corrosive projection would probably be my bet, just because it reduces armor. It just becomes useless in missions where there are no armor to be found. You could also do Summoner's Wrath, however the minions don't really do a lot of the damage. Only reason I would run that is either A, you don't really care what aura you have, and B, you just want to be thematic and buff other people running Caliban or some other pet frame. Exilus slot, I've not decided. The obvious choice would be Priam Sure-Footed, because the last thing, the best way you could die is getting knocked on your ass right when your shield gate ends and you don't have time to pop your 2, and then you get blown up. So that's the right answer. Firewalker could be fun. I don't have a maxed out Firewalker. I'm going to kind of play around with Kratos once I have it leveled to see if I like the extra speed or if it's too fast and too hard to control in smaller tile sets. I kind of want to tinker with that first. You could also do the Drift mod that gives increased range to truly max out your range. I don't think that 15% really makes a difference in the long run. I'm already basically coating entire defense points with one cast of my 4 anyways, but it is an option if you don't want either of the other 2. I've not decided which I'm going to use yet, but I'm just throwing that out there. As for Archon shards, like I said, 1 Tau Forged Equilibrium shard is what I've been messing with, and it's worked out pretty well. Haven't really decided what the other 4 are going to be. I know the legend himself, the Kengineer, he did just 5 duration shards, just max duration. I mean, that's pretty cool. I'm kind of leaning, I think duration's pretty good. I would not recommend strength shards. I just don't think you get a lot of value out of them. It's not as fun. You could do more equilibrium shards, maybe some cast speed shards, especially if you don't like playing Matter Eye. I usually play Matter Eye, so I get that 50% cast speed at all times anyway, if I remember to use my operator form every once in a while. Topaz shards really interest me. I don't know how they work. I don't know if the secondary crit buff is mission duration, like once you get the buff it just stays there forever, because if that's the case, killing enemies with heat procs on them is free. All of your abilities do heat procs. You would have to actively try to avoid doing damage to an enemy with a heat proc on it. So this would be the Topaz shards would be perfect on him, especially if you really like secondary weapons. And we got some fucking busted arcanes this patch for secondaries, including the new Taran Strike arcanes, the one that gives you like 250% free heat damage on all secondaries. I mean, you could combine that with Topaz shards and go fucking crazy. I have not decided. I also don't have 2 Topaz shards, so I've got time to figure it out. So those are some ideas. Maybe at some point I'll do a true proper follow-up build for Uriel. Like a min-maxed Uriel. I'm not doing any Umbral formas or anything on him. I'll wait for Uriel Prime to consider Umbrals, but to be fair, I don't want to use Umbral. I don't need them. I love every mod I'm doing on here. I can't wait to get a Prime Vigor and really get all the juicy numbers stacked perfectly. It'll be so satisfying to look at. It's a shame I don't have it yet. I should log in more often. I've been playing since 2016 and I don't have it. That's kind of embarrassing. We can all laugh at me though. That's fine. I know. Anyways, that is all I have for today. I adore Uriel. He's a fantastic frame. His helmet looks pretty fun too. I might end up using that helmet and the on-demand shield gate mechanic on some other frames. I'll have to see, perhaps. But for now, that is all I have. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe. If this does well, maybe I'll do more Warframe builds. Fun fact, actually, I originally was going to do Warframe builds for my YouTube, and then I started Final Fantasy XIV and just adored the game so much and no-lifed it and had no self-control to actually finish editing a video for Warframe, to the point where I scrapped the Warframe video and decided to make Final Fantasy because I was just playing the shit out of it at the time. And now, it's all come full circle. Final Fantasy has led me back to Warframe. What a weird twist of fate. How the turns have tabled. If you want to see more Warframes, let me know. Comment, say some things. And I've got some other builds. I got some other ideas. So maybe I'll show them off. But anyways, until next time.